Alright guys, so today I'm going to be showing you 50 ways to defend your bed in Bed Wars. Some of these are actually very effective, so there are some you probably don't want to miss. And if you do go on to enjoy the video, please do subscribe since we are on like the cusp of 1 million subscribers. Like, I cannot stress how close we are. Last time I checked, we were like 2 away. And also leave a like while you're at it, and let's get into it. I mean, it's the classic, pretty much everyone knows how to do it, and it's pretty cheap. Yes, the square, the worst version of classic. Would not recommend. Don't use this. Yes, the double layer classic. It's actually pretty good. I've seen this on a lot of my games. I've used it sometimes. If you use this, you're probably pretty good. It's definitely not the best though. There's some better ones to come. Yes, clay. I mean, it's pretty cheap, and it's pretty hard to break, so I would say this is a pretty good defense. You'll get my thumbs up. The square defense. It's very ineffective. It's way too expensive. I would not do this one, and if you do, stop. Just do the triangle one. Do just the normal clay defense. You don't have to do this. Now you see, this is incredibly effective, perhaps the greatest defense, because they'll get confused. They'll just mine the block, and it's much cheaper, because they're not going to mine the bed straight through. They're just going to mine the block. Yes, the moved bed. It's very effective, because if they mount on the side that you want them to, they'll have to mine an extra block, and it might just confuse them and make them go to a completely different base. So it's pretty effective. I would recommend. A lot of good players use this one. So the ladder defense. You know, ladders are super sweaty, so if you use them on your bed, you gotta be like incredibly sweaty. Well, that's not the case. Ladders on your bed, it's kind of trash. Probably don't use it. Would not recommend. The ENDSTONE defense. It's pretty good, but there are some improved versions of this coming on the list. No one likes that guy that gets obby, but you have to admit it's pretty effective, except it is really expensive, but it's also pretty expensive to get a diamond pick, so I don't know, it's a decent trade. The base defense. If you ever encounter someone doing this, they're probably not too good at PvP, but you can guarantee they have Prot 4 diamond armor and a sharpness diamond sword. Probably don't approach it unless you have fireballs to destroy their base and break their bed. It's kind of effective if you have Prot 4 diamond armor, but I would not recommend. It's kind of dog. The no defense, usually used by sweats who just want to win games as fast as possible and take out as many bases as possible in the least amount of time. If you do this, you're probably decent. The triple layer defense. It's pretty good just because of the sheer amount of time it takes to get to the bed, but there's one con. It took so long for me to build it. So I don't know if I'd recommend it just because of that, but if you do have a lot of time at base, I would probably recommend making it. The 4-layer defense. It's like the 3-layer defense, but it takes a little longer to make and is a little bit better. I would say this defense is fine if you have a lot of time to make a defense, and a lot of blocks. Alright, that's getting a little outrageous. You don't need this big of a defense. It took way too long to build, and it's not super effective. We need so many blocks. People can just play hide and seek in your bed defense. Probably would not recommend. Six layers. That's pushing it. Would not recommend. Half the bed hangs off the island. It takes like 6 stacks of blocks. It took me like 3 minutes. No, don't do it. It's bad. It's not effective. the turtle defense. Sometimes I'll use this in 2s. It's pretty good. It's one of the better wood defenses. I would say this is one of the top defenses in this list. I'd put it at least top 10, so it's pretty good. The butterfly defense, a very effective 4v4 and 3v3 defense, usually coupled with a strategy that is also very effective. Would recommend. It's very effective, not in 1s or 2s though, only 4s and 3s. It's pretty good. One layer of wood. I don't know why, but I've seen this a lot. It's pretty bad compared to like the turtle defense and stuff, and some others coming up. Probably just use one of those. The half obsidian defense. Only use this if you're too poor to afford a full obsidian defense, because I guess you can try to trick them into mining into that area, but usually it's not going to work and they're just going to get your bed. Would not recommend. I called this the halfway wood thing because I don't really know what it's called. It's really good. I've seen this in a lot of high-level games. Yes, I probably would recommend this. Once again, don't really know what to call this, but it's just kind of the inverted version of the other one, and I usually use this one, but it kind of just comes down to preference. Two layers of obby, it's pretty much just a flex. There used to be entire videos dedicated to getting it. It's kind of cool, but it's also really expensive. It's good, but probably get pots instead. Three layers of obsidian, that's bananas. It's also really expensive. Probably don't get it. The halfway defense. Get it? Because we're halfway done. I know. Incredibly creative. And this is a defense, but you can't go past the halfway point. The messy defense is, if you don't really know what you want to put on your beds, you grab some obsidian, you grab some endstone, you grab some clay, you grab some wool, and you just throw it all together. The wood and wool defense. As I've already shown in this list so far, there are some better alternatives to it, and for some reason I still see a lot of people using it, so if you are using this, probably stop, because it is definitely not the best and there are better versions of it. The rainbow defense. Well, if anything, it's a little bit more of a challenge because you have to go to every team to get the wool colors, but it is pretty cool once you've done it. The glass defense, it's a little bit overpriced and it's too easy to break. Probably would not recommend. The glass and wool defense. I used to use this a little bit, but then I stopped because it's really only good against TNT, and if you're using this, I'd probably recommend you probably stop as well. This is mainly a 4s and 3s bed defense, but I do see some people using it in 2s and 1s. I would say this is fine, but I don't think you need it. Glass and clay, this is fine. But if you could turn it into a sort of butterfly version of it, that would probably be a lot better. Although this is definitely not, like, horrible. By any means. The glass and endstone defense, it's a little bit worse than some others like the butterfly defense. Plus it's more expensive. So I would probably say don't use this, and if you are, just stop, you know? Glass and obsidian, this is just a waste of materials. Do not do this. You can just do obsidian and wool, and it's first of all much cheaper and probably a little bit better. $360 only defense. If you do this, you are sick. Mad props, because this is very cool and very clean. And the bed, every time you defend it, is just getting absolutely clipped on, and every time you defend your bed, it's just a trick shot. Alright, Alright, last 2 blocks there. Alright, that's my 73-layer obsidian defense. Hopefully the opponents aren't going to be getting through to that one. The square obsidian defense. It's just, as I said for all the other ones, the worst version of the normal version of it. You don't have to do it like this, you can just do the normal, and you lose nothing from it, and you gain a lot. As I said, with every single other time, it's just do the normal version of it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. The bad PC defense. I've actually seen a lot of people that main this. I don't know why. It doesn't really gain you anything. Maybe it's because they have a bad PC. The ENDSTONE and wood defense, it's actually pretty good, but think about what you could get with 24 iron and 4 gold. You could probably get quite a bit. Instead of a bed defense, you could try to get TNT or a sword or something. The wall defense. This is ineffective for the fact that it's really not a defense, it's kind of just a wall. So I would not recommend doing this, and if you're going to, you're just going to lose more games, so just stop. The no bed. This usually will happen after an unsuccessful rush or something, and then you'll be left with nothing. The 720 only defense. This is just sick because every time you do it, you're trick shotting on your opponents, and it's an easy clip for the montage. But it's actually not too effective because it's a waste of time, but it's also cool. A long defense. Usually this is done in hopes that they'll mine the wrong block. Usually it doesn't work and it's just a waste of time and materials, but when it does, it sure is satisfying. The longer defense. The same points that I said last time apply, but this time it's longer. The bedrock defense. Sadly, this requires admin abuse, but the only way to break it is if someone, draws out the time and it goes to bed's break. The barrier defense. Same points apply exactly, but this one's invisible, so it's a little bit cooler, you know? Yeah. The house defense. Now, you think, well, that's not a very good defense, but 10-20 years time, the property value on this thing is going to be incredible. And for you not doing that, you're just missing out, you know? The subscribe defense. You might think this is easy, but it turns out under 1% of people can actually do this. So check if you're in the small percent of people that actually can by clicking the red button. And if it turns gray, then you're kind of a goat, man. Alright, the like defense, this time it's a tiny bit easier, but it's still such a small percent of people that can actually do this. So just check if you can, and if you can do it, the like button will actually turn blue, so that's how you know. Please subscribe, this took so long to make. Oh my